What do Doctor Strange and Jacks Sparrow...
Captain!
Right, of course. My apologies. What do Captain Strange and Jacks Sparrow both have in common? Well, more than you might think. In addition to a mutual fondness for facial hair, both Sparrow and Strange fill similar roles in the movies that they are a part of. And while the Pirates franchise as we know it has concluded, there's still a lot that writers, especially those writing for Doctor Strange, can learn by examining the strengths and weaknesses of cinema's favorite swashbuckler. Back in 2003, audiences were introduced to one of the most uniquely charismatic characters ever put on a big screen. From the moment moviegoers saw him atop the mast of a sad and sinking sailboat, Jack Sparrow became an undeniable cinematic icon. The combination of Terry Rossio and Ted Elliott's writing, along with a career-defining performance by Johnny Depp, meant that the lovable rogue quickly became the most talked-about aspect of Curse of the Black Pearl. However, despite what marketing materials and subsequent films would have you believe, Jack was never actually meant to be a main character, or at least he was never supposed to be a protagonist. For clarity's sake, I'm defining a protagonist as a primary character whose goals, needs, or desires propel a drama forward and provides the central focus for the narrative. Now, Curse of the Black Pearl features many interweaving plots, all of which center around wonderfully deep and well-realized characters. You have Barbossa and his crew trying to undo their curse, Norrington trying to rid the Caribbean of piracy, and Jack trying to regain his position as Captain of the Pearl. But at the center of it all is a love story between an upper-class woman suffocated by high society,
Women in London must have learnt not to breathe,
and a blacksmith desperate to rise above his station. It's easy to forget, but William Turner and Elizabeth Swann were initially the protagonists of the series.
How could I forget Miss Swann?
Throughout the first movie, Elizabeth being kidnapped and Will trying to rescue her is the main source of narrative tension. Jack has motivations of his own, but his role in the story is that of a mentor figure. He is Will's guide into the world of piracy. He teaches Will to embrace moral ambiguity and compels him to do what's right, even when the law says it's wrong. The audience cares about Jack achieving his goals, but the narrative can progress even if he doesn't. Sparrow is able to shine as the fan-favorite character because he's not burdened with moving the plot forward. The fact that he is a side character, albeit a very prominent one, means he is free to be as quirky and off-kilter as the actor and writers want him to be. Conversely, I believe that there's a direct correlation between the decline of the franchise and the studio's attempt to shoehorn him into the role of protagonist. I love the initial trilogy, but once Will and Elizabeth exit the series, not including this brief moment of fan service, the remaining films just feel hollow. Even though Jack is the best thing about those early movies, forcing him to carry an entire film alone nullifies everything that made him so fun to watch in the first place. So, what's this all got to do with Doctor Strange? Well, one of the most common criticisms I've seen about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is that Doctor Strange feels like he plays second fiddle in his own movie. And while I agree that the movie focuses more on Scarlet Witch than it does Steven, I really don't think this is a bad thing. In fact, I think it might be the film's greatest strength. See, when Doctor Strange first released in 2015, the response to Strange as a character was lukewarm. The movie was financially successful, with many praising its introduction of magic into the MCU, but no one seemed particularly enthused about Stephen Strange himself. I imagine this was in large part due to his character arc feeling like merely a slight twist on Tony Stark's, which any Marvel fan was well acquainted with at that time. At no fault of Benedict Cumberbatch, Strange was a serviceable, if not underwhelming, protagonist in his debut film. However, if we look into Strange's future, or in our case the present, Doctor Strange has become a fan favorite for many. But what changed? As I mentioned at the top of the video, Jack Sparrow and Doctor Strange fulfill similar roles in their narratives. In the same way that Jack is a guide into the world of piracy and the supernatural, Stephen is a guide into the world of the mystical and unknown. It is when he is assisting other characters in the universe that his unique attributes and traits are most prominent, and I think Marvel realized this pretty early on. See, every movie featuring Doctor Strange following his introduction has utilized him as a side character rather than a protagonist. In Thor Ragnarok, he leads Thor and Loki to Odin. In Infinity War and Endgame, he teaches Stark and Banner about the nature of the Infinity Stones. And in No Way Home, he's a wizard who teaches Peter Parker to be careful what he wishes for.
It's an oversimplification of events, but yes.
When he's embedded within an ensemble rather than acting as the lone protagonist, Strange is able to be the snarky Sorcerer Supreme we all love to watch. Doctor Strange shines the brightest when the spotlight isn't on him. And this brings us back to Multiverse of Madness. While Strange has a minor character arc about learning to let go and not getting hung up on what could have been, the bulk of focus and character development falls to the female leads of the film. Even though the title is a bit misleading and the movie probably should have been called Scarlet Witch, the narrative is not hindered by taking such an unexpected direction. Having Stephen accompany America Chavez through the multiverse as a reluctant mentor works so well because that has always been the type of role his character should fill. Strange isn't taking a back seat in his own movie, he's just in the passenger seat acting as a navigator. Whereas the quality of Jack Sparrow's appearances has progressively declined, Doctor Strange has become better defined and more charismatic with each movie that he shows up in. The opposite trajectories of these characters show why it is so important to know what role a character should play in any given story. If you try to shoehorn them into a role they're not suited for, the quality of the narrative can plummet dramatically. So yeah, Doctor Strange is not the focus of his own movie, but honestly, Marvel seems to be fine with that. They gave Sam Raimi the freedom to make whatever movie he wanted, and the movie he wanted to make was a thrilling, horror-inspired roller coaster ride that does not take its foot off the gas until the credits roll. And yeah, sure, it has a misleading title, but I'd much prefer that to a properly titled, less interesting film. Ultimately, I think the reason the handling of Doctor Strange has consistently been going in the right direction is because the creatives at Marvel recognize one key truth about storytelling: that your main character and your most interesting character are rarely ever one and the same.